I tried to make him jealous, but he humiliated me instead. Hello, Reddit. My name is Evelyn, and I'm new here actually. This is my first post here, but I really need some advice because I'm in deep trouble. For privacy's sake, I'd like to keep my location a secret, and all other names apart from mine are made up, but the person isn't. Like I said, I'm Evelyn, and I'm 26 years old and an auditor. I work for an NGO where they conduct auctions to raise funds for orphanages around the country. I lived with my parents until I was 22, and against their every protest, I moved in with my boyfriend Oliver when we were barely a year into the relationship. But now, Oliver wants me to move out of his apartment and never show my face around him ever again. We're 4 whole years into the relationship. I cannot afford to lose Oliver because of my silly actions. It was all my fault, really. I had been feeling real petty, and I did a horrible thing. I just wanted to make him jealous. Well, I tried to make him jealous, but he humiliated me instead in front of everyone, and now he doesn't even want to see my face again. And I really, really love Oliver, and I know I did an awful thing, but I really don't want to lose him. Which is why I'm swallowing my pride and asking for advice here because I'm totally lost, and I don't know how to go about anything. Oliver and I met when I was still in school. University. I decided to study accounting with the aim of becoming an auditor, and my parents, although against the idea at first, later agreed to it. I had always dreamed of working in finance because of how much money statistics interested me. My father had a small restaurant and he was always running into debt even though he usually had lots of customers. I got tired and took control of handling the financial aspect of my dad's business, only to discover that my dad's chef had been taking most of the ingredients for selfish purposes. Ever since, my dad would always come to me to ask for financial advice, and that got me really interested in accounting. I was good with anything related to money flow. I met Oliver as a first-year student. He was a sophomore and a very popular one at that. He was a metal sculptor and a very good one at that. He'd been given a scholarship to study at the school, and he already had people wanting his works auctioned or shown in their museums. He was quite lucrative, and he was also handsome, which of course attracted many ladies, including me. I first saw Oliver at the school's mini library when I went to borrow a book I had been waiting for, and he bumped into me, spilling his ice-cold coffee all over my dress. He apologized and offered to pay for dry cleaning services, but I refused. Before I met him, I had heard so many facts and rumors about him, and had only ever seen him from afar, but had never really had any close contact with him until that day. He had been in a hurry that day, so he just insisted on paying for the dry cleaning and gave me his contact so I could let him know the amount, and he could send it to me. I was so happy I got his contact that day because, according to what I'd heard about Oliver, he didn't really relate much with people or hand out his contact easily. I didn't want to sound desperate, so I waited a few days before texting him, and he responded immediately, remembering who I was and apologizing for my dress again. He even asked for the cost of dry cleaning, and once again, I declined. We started texting randomly, and it was mostly me initiating the conversations. I tried not to sound desperate or as hopelessly in love with him as I already was. I would just chat about random things. Sometimes I asked about his work, which always got a positive response. Oliver didn't talk much, but the one thing he was great at was talking about his metal artwork. He could talk about it for hours, and he always had that excited tone he only used whenever he spoke about his artworks. Our classes were never on the same path, but I took the painstaking decision of passing the long route that would definitely make us meet coincidentally. I was literally obsessed with Oliver without him even knowing I was careful to hide it a lot around him. I made friends with his friends. I learned almost everything he liked so I could like them too. And I dressed extra girly because he once mentioned he loved when girls dressed really girly, but had a good head on their shoulders. Luckily, I was smart enough, but I studied harder. I literally did everything to get Oliver to notice me. Everyone thought we were dating before we actually even started dating because of how closely we interacted. And I am sure back then, that everyone else could have noticed how crazy I was about Oliver, except Oliver himself. I asked Oliver out myself when I realized he was not going to take the initiative, and I was losing my mind waiting around for that day to come. Oliver was shocked when I confessed my feelings for him and asked for time to process it. Well, I didn't exactly give him that time. In my head, time did not mean a no, so I felt like he was just playing hard to get, so I started our relationship for us. I started behaving like his girlfriend all around campus, and if anyone asked whether we were together, I would say yes. I kept up the act until one day I was asked in front of Oliver whether or not we were together, and Oliver frowned and answered with a no. I felt really embarrassed, and I was so angry that I ran out of there. The next day, I sent a text to Oliver saying goodbye to him and the world, as there was nothing worth living for since he wouldn't love me. To outsiders, it was a suicidal text, but to me, it was just my last resort. I wanted Oliver, and I was willing to go to extreme lengths to get him, even if I had to lie and pretend I wanted to kill myself. Oliver rushed over and agreed to be my boyfriend if I promised never to send a text or even think of something like that. That, of course, was the easiest thing to promise. So that was how Oliver and I started dating. I was really so happy. It felt like I had achieved a whole lot, or like I had won a Grammy. I loved Oliver so much, and when he graduated, I was so sad and paranoid. I knew he could leave school and find someone else, and that alone made me want to lose my mind. So I made the decision to move in with him. Oliver at first was against it because his new place was quite far from school, and then I lived with my parents, who most likely wouldn't agree with the idea of me moving in with a guy. But I was so adamant about it, and eventually I had it my way. Living with Oliver was like a dream come true for me. He was my whole world, and I loved him and still love him very much. I knew Oliver loved me too, although he never really showed much of it. For instance, whenever we went out with our friends, I saw our friends invite their girlfriends and boyfriends along and how they behaved around each other. But Oliver was never like that. He wouldn't hold or touch me in public, and when I tried to get all touchy, he'd allow it for a while before carefully extracting my limbs from around him. One time, we fought about it and he told me he didn't like his affairs being displayed in public. He liked everything private. I didn't like that, but I had no choice but to accept things as they were. However, Oliver was a sweetheart indoors. He got extremely touchy when we were alone. He would buy me gifts randomly. Sometimes it was a dress I had seen somewhere and liked, or it was some expensive jewelry or shoes. But that didn't satisfy me. I wanted what I saw on social media and what I saw other couples do outside. I wanted everything, and it frustrated me when Oliver wanted to keep everything private. Like the one time he bought the house we live in currently. He had entered a competition with 5 of his artworks and won first prize, which was a whole lot of money. So he bought the house and we moved in almost immediately. I wanted to brag about him just like I saw Sophia do online. By the way, Sophia was a friend of mine, not exactly. We were always competing, whether academically, financially, or even socially. I hated her, but we had the same group of friends, so we were almost always forced to be together in most situations. She had a boyfriend then who was quite rich, and she was always posting every little thing about them. So when Oliver bought the house, I took a picture and posted it to congratulate us on our newest purchase. Oliver was upset with me and insisted I take down the post, and I did, but I was really unhappy. I felt like he didn't want people knowing much about us or seeing us together, and that made me feel a certain way. I was done with school by then, so I got a job through the help of my Aunt Ava, my mom's sister, who worked at the NGO where I work now. Oliver's artwork gained the recognition it needed, giving his career the boost he needed, and he had the opportunity to travel all around. I became very paranoid around that time. I feared that Oliver would cheat on me, and I was always calling and texting to check where he was. When he wasn't available to pick his calls or respond to my numerous texts, I panicked and would call more until I reached him. Oliver sometimes got angry whenever I accused him of wanting to cheat or already cheating on me. I admit he truly tried several times to assure me he was true to me. but I just couldn't stop the fear from creeping into my mind. I loved Oliver too much, and thinking of another girl in his life made me lose every sense of reasoning. One time, I even put a tracking device on Oliver so I could track his movements, and Oliver found out about it and was really upset. But those were the only ways I could prove my love to him. Crazy how that sounds, but I just loved him too much to want anyone else around him, and I was starting to lose my mind. It was almost like Oliver didn't care for me enough. I wanted him to act jealous when I got a text and ask who it was from. One time we were indoors, and I got a text while Oliver was holding my phone. He didn't even bother to check who the text was from, and handed me my phone to respond to my messages. It was so upsetting, and I accused him of not wanting to check through my phone because he didn't love me enough. He said it was because he trusted me and knew it was probably one of the girls messaging me. It was true, but I still just wanted him to behave like he cared totally. I know he did care and loved me, but I just wanted it to show more in his actions. Not that it didn't, but I'm probably not making any sense. It did in my head back then, but now as I write, I realize why Oliver thought of me as a weird thinker. I eventually got really busy with work because we had to auction some items to raise money, and as the auditor, I had to make sure every book was balanced and that there was nothing out of place financially. I even managed to convince Oliver to auction some of his artworks because they were usually bought for really high prices. So, inevitably, Oliver was invited to the party. But since our organization had strict rules about not getting involved with clients or anyone we worked with, I had to pretend not to know Oliver on a personal level. That was a strain, especially seeing women throw themselves at him after the whole event. But something else caught my attention that night, too. I was so stressed and exhausted from having to stand through the whole thing, especially because some people just assumed I was the host and kept calling to make observations about various things. I escaped to the bathroom to catch my breath when I heard two women come in. They were discussing their boyfriends. One complained about how tiring it was to keep up with her possessive boyfriend who just wanted to watch her every step. She further complained to her friend that although he was rich and bought her different things, she just wasn't happy, and the friend encouraged her to quit if she wasn't happy. And somehow I just felt anger for the girl in question. To me, it just showed how much he loved her, and that was what I had always wanted Oliver to be around me. I took a quick look at her and noticed her blaring dress and red lipstick, which made her hard to forget. When I got back to the party, knowing that she probably came with the possessive boyfriend she spoke of, I searched for her discreetly, and she wasn't hard to find. Others blended in, but she didn't with her red dress. So I noticed the man she came with holding her, kissing her cheek, and staring at her like she was the only woman in the room. I felt really jealous, and when I looked across the room at Oliver, he was staring at me too. When our eyes met, he just smiled and nodded. I felt frustrated. I just wanted him to cross the room, hold me, and claim me as his woman. I know he couldn't do that because it meant I would lose my job, but I still wanted him to. But knowing Oliver as I did, I knew he was a careful and private person and would never do that because he didn't want me to lose my job. I had access to the file with the list of invited guests to the party because I was a staff member, so I secretly took the contact information of the possessive boyfriend of the lady whom I found out was named Mason and who was really wealthy. I stole his contact information off the file. I don't know why I did that, though. Maybe because I felt I could relate to him and that it would be human of me to just warn him that his girlfriend, whom he loved very much, was having second thoughts about their relationship. But it would have been good if that was the only thing I did, right? At first, I started talking to Mason secretly and privately, and he didn't know who I was. I first got him interested when I said I knew his girlfriend and hinted that I had some information about her. He demanded I tell him what I knew, but I refused and kept playing mind games at first. He threatened to track me down and make sure I lost any job I had, and I was scared but then realized it was an empty threat because I remained anonymous, and I guess that frustrated him. He started talking more calmly when he realized I wasn't going to budge, even with his threats. He talked to me about his girlfriend, who was actually his fiancée, and how they were supposed to get married in 2 weeks. but she pushed the wedding date back with some excuse about not being ready for marriage. He told me she always accused him of being possessive, and no matter how hard he tried not to be, he couldn't be anything else. I felt his pain because he was everything I had always wanted Oliver to be. I felt drawn to Mason because of this, and before long, our conversation shifted from being all about his girlfriend to being about us. I was excited. I began to look forward to talking to him more and more. I knew the feelings that came from talking to Mason were just because he was attracted to me without even knowing me. I knew I wasn't in love with him, just as he wasn't with me, but we just clicked, and our conversation moved from casual talks to sexual talks. We would have phone sex without even seeing each other. What made it more alluring was the fact that he didn't even know who I was. It made it more exciting. Oliver even noticed the bouncy change in my mood and jokingly asked if I had won the lottery, but I snapped at him. I knew he was joking, but I thought in my head that he should be the one getting me all excited sexually, not Mason, whom I barely knew. That just made me feel guilty and mad. Don't get me wrong, Oliver and I had a great sex life, in fact, the best. Oliver was quite insatiable in bed, and sex with him always left me satisfactorily exhausted. But I still just wanted the craziness I had with Mason to be with Oliver. Soon, Mason started to pester me to meet up with him and stop all the distant sex we'd been having. I even started sleeping in the guest room of our house so Oliver wouldn't have to hear me moaning over texts. When Oliver asked, I lied that it was because I had some work to do and didn't want to disturb him with the lights on, as I knew Oliver liked sleeping with the lights off. I finally agreed to meet up with Mason, and he sounded so excited about it. I picked the day Oliver had to travel. He decided to go visit his parents and spend the weekend with them since it had been a while. He actually invited me and wanted me to come along, as it wasn't my first time meeting his parents, but I refused. I lied to him that I had some work to do because I had some problems with an account that had to be fixed by the following Monday. And Oliver, being Oliver, was sad that I couldn't come along, but allowed me to stay back because he didn't want to jeopardize my work. I planned where we would meet and sent Mason the address of the local hotel I had booked for us. Mason agreed, although he didn't like the idea of the cheap hotel because he wanted to see me. When we finally met, we had sex on our first day of meeting. It felt like a long-awaited moment. All the texts we exchanged had been foreplay enough. Mason was not as sexually good as Oliver was. Oliver, although an insatiable lover, always paid attention to my needs and made sure I had an orgasm before he did. He was always a gentle lover and never tried anything unless I was eager to try them out. But with Mason, it was different. He was a rather selfish lover who paid more attention to his needs than mine. I didn't have an orgasm the first time we had sex, which left me feeling sexually frustrated, but I didn't say anything because he didn't even bother asking. When we were done, Mason left almost immediately. He had apparently gotten what he came for. It pissed me off, especially because over the next few days, he didn't call or message me even after I gave him my real number. I thought of it as his way of saying we were done, and I had to move on. I was irritable through that week and took everything out on poor Oliver. I didn't mean to do that, but I just felt really guilty that I cheated on Oliver with someone who wasn't worth it, and it made me snap, and Oliver living with me became the bearer of those snaps. I decided never to cheat again on Oliver, and I even reasoned that I was lucky it had been a one-time thing, which meant Oliver had zero chance of finding out about my impulsive decision. But it's one thing to decide something and another to follow through with it, because once Mason reached out to me again, I fell into his arms almost immediately. No. Actually, it was I who reached out to him. I found myself too upset to just let go without clearing things off my chest, so I texted Mason, saying all sorts of things, and he just replied with, "I want to see you again." That was all it took to get me back in his arms. We would meet up occasionally just to have sex. I don't even know why I was doing it. I just couldn't stop. It wasn't an addiction, but I just couldn't stop. I also wanted to make Oliver jealous too. Sometimes I left my phone lying around when I knew Mason would call me, but Oliver just wouldn't even bother. He only asked once who Mason was, and when I told him he was a client from work, he never said anything else. It frustrated me greatly, but I couldn't do anything about it. I loved Oliver very much, and I knew that telling him angrily that I was cheating on him just to get some reaction would probably end with me regretting the outburst. I've always known how much Oliver hated partners who cheated. He always told me he would never condone cheating because he felt that partners only cheat for one reason. They are no longer in love, so they should just part ways instead of staying together and still cheating. That was why he was always upset when I accused him of cheating. But now I was the one doing the one thing I usually accused him of. And the craziest thing was that I couldn't even pinpoint a reason why I was doing it. Soon, Oliver began to suspect me, especially when I kept sleeping in the guest room, and whenever he came into the room, I would snap my phone shut and quickly dismiss him. That was only because the 2 times he walked in on me, I had been on a video call with Mason. Mason had to travel far for work, and he insisted on seeing me. The first time, we had been talking dirty, sexual talks. The second time, Mason had sent me nude pictures of himself and was pressuring me to send one of myself, which I was about to do when Oliver walked in. Oliver started to question my movements and sometimes insisted I stay home on weekends. It was what I had always wanted to happen, but when it finally did, it actually irritated me. It felt like he didn't trust me anymore. And I know I probably didn't give him reasons to trust me, but it still made me feel weird and annoyed. We started to have issues over it. I was always the one picking fights, though. Oliver would just listen to me rant and then insist I stay home, or he would drive me to work, wait until I was done, and then drive me back. I couldn't see Mason as often as before because of that, and it kind of put him on edge. He kept calling and texting, and soon it became somewhat aggressive. He would insist that I leave whatever I was doing to come see him, or else he would barge into my office space or home. At first, I thought he was joking until he actually showed up at my office, but I managed to control the situation by lying to everyone that he had just come to see the boss, knowing our boss was not around. He was getting out of control, and I didn't like it one bit. I knew he had a girlfriend, and I thought we both understood it was just a fling. But I found out later that his girlfriend ended things with him because she couldn't cope anymore, which meant I was the only one on his radar, so he could behave carelessly without fear of being found out. It wasn't the same for me, and that scared me. I had bitten off more than I could chew. Oliver started behaving really cold toward me a few days later. I was confused because before, he acted like a jealous boyfriend, which annoyed me, but then he started giving me the cold shoulder. I tried everything to get him to tell me what was wrong because at that point, I was confident he knew nothing about my affair with Mason. So I guessed it was something else. Perhaps something I did to piss him off. But knowing Oliver, I knew he'd rather talk out a problem than sit on it. But it was different this time, and it kind of made me anxious. I tried to get Oliver to talk to me, but he just shut me out completely, and that hurt really badly. So I decided that the one thing that could get a reaction out of a man acting coldly was to make him jealous. No, I actually read about it somewhere. Now I wish I could unread it or never have foolishly thought to use it. So I decided to invite Mason over to our gathering. We had this annual gathering with our friends. We would choose someone's house to host us, reconnect, and update one another on recent happenings in our lives. It was like a reunion to celebrate our years of friendship. I don't know why I stupidly thought it was a good idea to invite Mason to the gathering, but I just desperately wanted a reaction out of Oliver. And I got it. Only it was not the reaction I was prepared for or even wanted at all. I told Oliver I would be arriving separately for the gathering since we weren't the hosts, and he just shrugged nonchalantly, not asking why, which pissed me off, making me think my idea would work. When I was sure everyone would already be there, I arrived intentionally late and with Mason holding his upper arm. I saw the look of surprise on everyone's face, knowing I was with Oliver and that we probably hadn't ended things. I introduced Mason to the gang as my friend, and he was warmly welcomed. Oliver wasn't in the room when I came in, and when he came out from where I presumed to be the bathroom and saw me with Mason, his expression was neutral, not the jealous look I wanted to see. He calmly walked toward us and asked me why I thought it wise to invite the person I was cheating on him with to a gathering with friends. I was so shocked that I couldn't even argue, and I guess that proved his point, as everyone just stood there gaping and whispering. Mason stood up and attempted to leave, but Oliver stopped him and asked him to take me along with him because he was clearly done with me. When I tried apologizing to Oliver, he angrily told me I should never show my face around him again except to take my things from his house. The party ended abruptly that night, and everyone looked at me like some monster. I have never felt as embarrassed as I did that day, but that is not even the problem. Update. Hello, Reddit. To say I'm devastated would be totally inadequate to describe my feelings. I have never known what it meant to feel hopeless until this moment. I feel so heartbroken, empty, sad, and angry. Heartbroken because Oliver won't even speak to me at all. Empty because I really am nothing without Oliver. Sad because you guys made it your sworn duty to make sure I understand how stupid I am. And angry because I did a really stupid thing. I'm angry. I'm angry at myself. I don't know why I thought I could do what I did and get away with it. All I did was for nothing. I thought I could make Oliver jealous so he would notice me, and I didn't even know he did notice me all along. He loved me enough to tolerate my stalking, my attitude, and accusations. I've always known how Oliver felt about cheating, and yet I still went ahead to do the very thing he hated. Now I feel so lost, and I don't even know how to go from here. Oliver was my everything. He was my world. And yet I still found a way to hurt him so much. He had to end things with me. How? How could I have behaved so crazily? I wish I had known the end result of all of this, and I would never have contacted Mason in the first place because now that I think of it, I never had any reason to. But I stupidly did. I'm such an idiot. I cheated so terribly on the only man that I loved, and yet I still wanted to wave it under his nose. What was I expecting when I brought Mason to the party? Some accolades? I should have known that Oliver had found out about my ill-covered affair when he was giving me the cold shoulder treatment. But I was just too blind to his feelings to see that I was a selfish idiot, too into my own feelings to understand any of his. And that hurts more than anything. I should have been a good girlfriend from the beginning and trusted him wholeheartedly. I should never have done the things I did to him. I should have just focused on loving him and not comparing our relationship to others. I should have done a lot of things, but I didn't. I just didn't. Actually, I did. I did a whole lot of things, but they were things that I should never have done. I regret so badly ever having hurt Oliver. I know I will forever pay for my sins. With Oliver, I had achieved a number of things, but here I am, back to square one in my parents' house. I can't even tell them what I did because I know now how condemning my actions are. But they aren't stupid. They're beginning to ask questions. It's only a matter of time before they find out exactly what I've done, and then they'd probably throw me out too. I'm left to pick up the broken pieces of my life, but they're just too broken to even be put together again. I feel so horrible. It hurts so badly knowing that I could never be a part of Oliver's life again, and that is all my fault. Update. Hello, Reddit, it's me again. It's been 6 months, 5 days, 8 hours, and 22 minutes since Oliver ended our relationship. Yes, I'm counting because that's all I can do right now. Hoping the time passes more quickly. Just wanted to say that this is possibly my last post here, and I just wanted to say thank you. Although most of your comments have been demeaning, they were the only response I at least got. My reality has just been filled with total silence, and it's killing me slowly. I know that this is my punishment for hurting Oliver as much as I did, and if I have to continue like this for the rest of my life to make up for at least a fraction of what I did to hurt him, then I will willingly go through it every day of my life. But then again, I could never make up for it, can I? Oliver has probably moved on, right? I wouldn't know because everyone blocked me, so I have no means of even getting snippets of what is happening with him. He probably has someone new? The thought of that is really killing me, though. The thought of seeing Oliver with anyone else other than me just tears my heart into pieces. But I can't do anything about it because it's bound to happen. I had Oliver, and I lost him because of my foolish actions. There's bound to be another woman waiting to take my place. The place I stupidly lost. I will forever be trapped in this hell of my own making. That I know is for certain. I'm sure the hell being preached about is better than my life right now. Well, I hope you guys don't end up like I did, because I could tell you from this side that it really is awful here. Thanks and goodbye.